Hi everybody, I want to give you a video to kind of help you organize for Module 3. And Module 3, the focus is really on taking what you learned about in Module 2, which was what are the language and communication needs of my students, and then beginning to match them with expectations, which are standards that can help guide us, and then figuring out how and where to teach those communication skills. The launch is just like it was before. Every other module, you have a question here to answer, and you'll do that first. Do that on Monday. Explore kind of helps you see that this module is organized around week 1 and week 2. So you have a set of readings for week 1 and you have a set of readings for week 2. Week 1 includes readings, and then there will be a dialogue and a product, something that you will put together and submit at the end of the week or on Sunday. And then week 2 has a set of readings, and then it also has something that you will turn in individually. So the week 1 readings are really around the standards, using standards to help match what students' needs are with what the expectations are. These are really, the standards are good guides, and I think we all need guides to help us really figure out exactly what to work on. And so the guides that we have, the standards, are the Common Core state standards, which are the Wisconsin standards for listening and spoken language. Now I have a link here to the Common Core website, and that gives you the whole set of standards. And then I have listening and spoken language. This is a file that you can print off, and it just has the listening and spoken language standards for K-5 and 6 through 12. That's what you'll use. I'd like you to become familiar with, look over the whole set of standards for the Common Core, just again to become familiar with them. But we're going to focus right in on the listening and spoken language standards. So print that off so that you have it right at your fingertips. The second set of standards that I think are helpful in guiding us to goals to meet the needs of our students in discourse communication, conversation, and interactive communication are the English language proficiency standards. And they're useful for students who do not speak English and for students who are using ASL. But they're also useful for all students who might be struggling with English. So again, here's the full, this is like a 250-page document. Take a look at it. I don't expect you to read the whole thing, but I have this file here, ELP Standards. This is a file that has sort of a snapshot of all of the goals that are expected K through, I think they go all the way through K-12. So print this out, the ELP standards, and you'll have 2 sets of standards that you can actually refer to that will help you with identifying, creating goals for students. And then I do link you to WEMALS, which is the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards for students who are early childhood students, pre-K. These are the standards that you would use, and they likely will have good communication goals that standards that you can use to help create your goals. These are the readings for week 1. The readings for week 2 again are going to focus on teaching. And so there's a chapter by Easterbrooks and Baker on answering and asking questions, which is a really good chapter on how to develop those interactive skills. And then a few other ideas that might be useful in helping to build, again, interactive communication. You'll have an assignment for week 1 and an assignment for week 2. So for week one, your dialogue, it begins Monday, October 3rd, and October 9th, you would have your assignment. It really is to help you become familiar with the standards, to begin to think about how you match a student's needs with some of the expectations that are in the standards and create goals. So read and become familiar with the standards, the spoken language and listening standards, and the ELP standards. And in your dialogue, discuss how are each set of the standards organized. What are some of the focus language skills that in your experience at this point are the most relevant to the group of students with whom you are working? So it really is just talking about the standards. As your final summary, each group member is to identify one example of a language standard that aligns with the communication skill that you identified for your student. So Module 2, you identified some communication conversational goals for your students. So can you begin to match that with a standard? Either the Common Core, spoken language and listening, or the ELP standards, whichever one works the best. And then you're going to post your ideas on in this format. Now I don't have a file, but you can make one that has the language standard or goal that you chose, that you think matches what your students' need is, the curriculum context, so where would you see your students actually having to use this skill, and then how might you measure it? It could be direct observation. I have an example for you in my notes that helps you see exactly what I'm wanting, but I just want you to find a language standard that a listening and spoken language standard or an English language proficiency standard that you think might match your students' needs. So if you have 3 people in your group, each person is going to contribute a goal. Each person is going to contribute a curriculum context, like where might that goal be used. And then each of you will just think about a way that you might measure a student's progress on that. That is really what the focus of week one is, to help you begin to match, again, those standards with what your students' needs are. And that is the summarize. The apply is week 2. And so in the apply, you will read, actually, I think what I'm going to do is another video for week 2, because you're going to use, it's sort of building. If you read my notes, you will, let me go back to my notes, because it makes it a little bit more clear where I want you to go in week 2. And I give you a model to follow. So look at my example. So these are my notes, and this is one of the first things that you'll read. It does talk about the focus. It talks about the fact that I like I am a developmentalist. I like to look at language development and go for that next step, much like the P levels, P level 1, 2, 3, and 4. But in fact, we have to pay attention to the expectations, and that's where the standards come in. And so this really kind of walks you through the process for week 1 and some of the information. But this is the process that I'm asking you to do. Identify the language goal, we did, or some of the goals for communication. Target skills that are highly functional for learning and socializing, aligning them with the standards, and then looking at where you might, what exactly you might be teaching and where in the classroom. Individually, context is important for teaching some of these goals. All right, so then that is the major process and this sort of illustrates kind of looking at all 3 of those things and coming up with an IEP goal. Then I describe task 1, what you have to do. And here is my example. Find a language standard, talk about where you would find this skill and where you might actually help support a student's learning of this particular skill, and then how you might measure it. That is, and you could cut and paste this from my notes for your group, but each person contributes a goal. And that is week 1. And so I'll do a video for week 2, but primarily week 2 is asking you to take what you used here and beginning to think about the kind of the approach you're going to take for instruction and where you might actually teach that skill. All right, so I will talk to you next week, and I look forward to seeing sort of your P levels. I think that'll be fun this week to see what you did.